It's a fascinating inyanim. We definitely discussed this years ago, etc. But every time it's always good to review, and we're moving on. The reason I chose the topic we're about to deal with is, again, just as we dealt with the topic of Leil Shimurim in the first year, because that is a topic which we need now, especially now in the circumstances we're in, that it should be a Leil Shimurim, and it should be every night a Leil Shimurim, every moment a Leil Shimurim. Al derech zeh, we're going to speak on the topics of Parshas Boi. Take a Chumash Shmois. It's Taka Parshas Tzav this week, but please take a Chumash Parshas Boi, which is relevant to Pesach and to Korban Pesach, and it deals with the restrictions, because Moshe Rabbeinu told Am Yisrael, "Va'atem lo yiseitzu ish mi Pesach beisoi ad boiker." So these are the restrictions. Even if you're not over 70, you have to stay home. If you don't have to walk around, you don't have to go shopping, stay home. Remain safe. Va'atem lo yiseitzu ish mi Pesach beisoi ad boiker. Okay. So please open up your Chumashim. Now your Chumash, we're going to be focusing, if you have what's it called?
Stone.
Was it clear? Yeah. If you have a bookmark, so please have the bookmark ready, because we're going to be turning a couple of pages, and that is as follows. If you have an art scroll Rashi, that's the Chumash I have in front of me, so then it'll work well. So turn to your art scroll Rashi Chumash, and that is page 110. If you don't have an art scroll Rashi, so it's in Chumash Parshas Boi, Kapitel Yud Beis, Posuk Zayin. Kapitel Yud Beis, Posuk Zayin, chapter 12, verse 7. Okay. We read there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in Posuk Vav, they should take the Korban Pesach and slaughter it, etc. Zayin, verse 7. Posuk Zayin says, "V'lokchu min adom," the Yidden should take from the blood of the Korban, "V'nosnu al shtei hamezuzos," they should place it on the two doorposts, "Ba'al hamashkoif," and on the lintel, "Al habotim asher yechlu oisoi bohem," upon the houses in which they will eat the Korban Pesach. That's one pasuk we're going to focus on. Now, that is where HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron HaKohen to pass on to the Klal Yisrael, to Am Yisrael. Please turn some pages, and let's go to Kapitel Yud Beis, verse Posuk Chav Beis. Again, if you have an art scroll Rashi, it's page 122. Otherwise, Kapitel Yud Beis, Posuk Chav Beis, that's chapter 12, verse 22. There, this parsha is dealing with Moshe Rabbeinu gathers the elders and tells the elders what HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded him to tell the Yidden. And he starts off by saying in Posuk Chav Beis, "Ulekachtem," after they slaughter the Korban Pesach, they shech the Korban Pesach, "Ulekachtem agudas ezov," you should take a bundle of hyssop, utvaltem badom asher basof, and dip it into the blood that is in the basin. V'higatem el hamashkoif el shtei hamezuzos, and you should. Anyway, my art scroll says touch. Well, good luck to him. He thinks he's supposed to say touch. So as I touch, I believe after we finish this year, we will see that possibly he's wrong, at least the way the Rogatchover would learn. But he let it Elzain touch, and I don't know, I'm so sure it's touch, because it doesn't say unigatem. You get it? The Torah in the Sefer Torah Moshe from the Alshich, it says vihigatem. It doesn't say unigatem. Okay, so he says touch. Okay, I've seen others say apply or dab. So, because again, we're going to focus on that term. So let it be either touch, or let it be apply, or let it be dab. Let's go on in the meantime. We'll get the general picture first. Yeah, and the lintel and the two doorposts with some of the blood that is in the basin. And as for you, you shall not leave the entrance of the house until morning. Okay. So, if you noticed, just from a fast glimpse on these two psukim, even though, as the Mefarshim saying, it's obvious that the starting off from this pasuk onwards, this is a recording, a review, a repeat of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu, and there's no two ways about it. Whatever Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Am Yisrael, the Ramban already says that even though we don't find it detailed in the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe, definitely Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't say anything of his own. He's definitely, everything we find in the words of Moshe to the Klal Yisrael now at this stage, in this section of the Parsha, is surely passing on what Hashem says, as it is explicit in the Pasuk. The Rambam brings the Pasuk, and that is, again, kapitel Yud Beis, Pasuk Chof Ches. Again, if you have your art scroll Rashi, it's page 124, or in other words, chapter 12, verse 28. Says there, Vayelchu vayasu b'nei Yisrael kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe va'Aaron kein osu. So it's mefurish in the Torah that they went to fulfill kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe va'Aaron, right? Meaning everything Moshe va'Aaron are telling Am Yisrael is kasher tziva Hashem es Moshe va'Aaron. No two ways about it. As it states in Ramban, and it's pashut. Nevertheless, there are certain things which are explicitly written in the words of Hashem. There were in the first section. There are certain things written explicitly in the second parsha. Now we're going to focus on some of the things which are not explicit in the words of Hashem, and some of the things which are explicit in the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, which the Rogatchover Gaon focuses on. And I will share with you some of what the Meforshim say. Now, like I say, there are many differences, very many. It's like unbelievable. There's a drasha of Rab Chaim Palagi in one of his drashas on Shabbos HaGadol, and he Pasha dissects the lashon of the psukim like it's like in an unbelievable fashion, unbelievable. Like cuts it into pieces to show that every word that seems to be different than the former parsha, what Hashem says to Moshe, and then we find and also many of the terms or messages seem to be questionable and problematic and not understood, etc. We're not going to go there because it will never end. We're just focusing on 2 points which the Rogatchover raises, and I will share with you just a limited amount of meforshim, some of them, some of the primary meforshim, the commentaries, who say and comment on it. And that is, let's start off with the one which is like in your face, and that is, and we'll mention some, by the way, as we go to discuss things, but again, we're focusing mainly on those which the Rogatchover highlights. And that is, in second parsha, it says, right, in parsha boy, Perek Yud Beis, kapitel Yud Beis, Pasuk Chav Beis, it says, Olekachtem agudas eizoiv, utfaltem badom asher basof. Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, you should take a bundle of hyssop and dip it into the blood which is in the basin. Now, in the words of Hashem, we don't find that. It says in kapitel Yud Beis, Pasuk Vav, it says, V'lokchu min adom, you should take the blood and you should place it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel. It doesn't say any more than that. It doesn't mention the hyssop, and it doesn't mention that we should dip the hyssop in the basin. Correct? Obvious, it's just not there. Now, so I'll mention to you some points of what the Rishonim say. Rishonim, the Gdolei Rishonim, Chachmei Tzorfas say something, and the Ramban says a point, and then I'll mention in short what the Maral Miprog says, and also the Alshich Bekitzur, and then we'll go on to the Rogatchover. So let's move it quickly, and that is Rabbi Yosef B'chor Shur, known is a Pirush ala Torah called B'chor Shur ala Torah. There's an old edition of Rabbi Yosef B'chor Shur in the market. Everybody has one. It's a standard edition. It has been the last many years reprinted and re-edited, etc. by Moshe Rav Kook, a very gewaltige choshev chibur from Rabbi Yosef B'chor Shur, who was a student of Rabbeinu Tam from the Chachamim from Tzorfas, from France, and he was a Talmid Chaviv of Rabbeinu Tam. I'll call upon him. He's a Pashton, and he says simple, a lot of pirushim, but if Poshet Lavdafka, like he doesn't especially follow Rashi and others. I'll call upon him. He has his own methodology. Niker. He says, look, he mentions this point. He says, we find that Hashem seems to speak in short, and we find details in Moshe Rabbeinu's message to the Yidden HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't mention. He says, yes, it's normal. He says that's quite usual. He says, this is usual. That is a rule. He says, this is a basic rule of the Torah. That when the Torah repeats itself, like in this case, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, see, quite often HaKadosh Baruch Hu will find throughout Chumash, sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu commands Moshe, and it says Moshe passed it on to Yidden, and it doesn't say what he said to the Yidden, right? It doesn't detail what he said to them. Sometimes it says the details Moshe Rabbeinu said to Yidden, and it doesn't say the details what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe. You'll find it throughout the Chumash, different din in different cases. Here we find something novel. Here we find just about everything Moshe HaKadosh Baruch Hu it tells Moshe Rabbeinu details, and that's recorded in the Torah, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu records the details and tells the Am Yisrael the details. Okay, so we understand that Moshe Rabbeinu has to detail it for the Klal Yisrael, but we're talking about what is reviewed in the Chumash, you understand? No question, like the Ramban says, everything Moshe Rabbeinu says the Klal Yisrael, to Am Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, he didn't add anything of his own. He may have explained it to them, but he says everything, didn't add anything of his own. It's all mipi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, Mefurish, right? The halacha is you can't say Moshe mipi atzma yomre, God forbid, because then you're God forbid, whatever, you're an apostate, you whatever you are. It's all from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, all good. Question is, what is reviewed in the Chumash? So says the Rabbi Yosef Hersher, that's a rule. It's based on the principles of how to learn, the principles of the Tanoim, that when we have a parsha in the Torah repeated, like in this case, the first parsha is bekitzer, is short. The second parsha is with more detail. And he says, I'll show you. The fact is, like in this case, Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't mention anything about the Agudas Eizov and Utvalten Badam Asher Basof. It doesn't mention the hyssop. It doesn't mention that you should dip it into the blood in the basin. And then the reason is, Pasha, there's no questions to be asked. It's not an issue. It's a non-issue. That's the Seder HaDvarim. All good, beautiful, Mechayah. We can close the shir. You can close your chumash and close your Zoom and get schlafen. Okay. The Ramban in Pesach Chaf Aleph, if I recall correctly, also raises this issue that we find discrepancies. In other words, we find, and Dafke he says, we find in Yonim in the first parsha, which are not found in the second parsha. We find in Yonim in the second parsha, which are not found in the first parsha. And again, we're focusing only on this point. And the Ramban says as follows. And he chooses and plucks out a cut and paste. In other words, he addresses this specific topic we're discussing. He says, take a look. In the first parsha, it says, V'lokchu min adon. There's no guidelines exactly how the dam should be taken or how it should be sprinkled, etc. Or thrown. Here it says, says the Ramban, this is intentional. HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Chumash reviewed. In other words, we recorded in the Chumash when the Torah Shebiksav was written. When we have the Torah Shebiksav, HaKadosh Baruch Hu did it deliberately, explicitly that way. That one section of the Torah should have a lekachtem without detailing, without explaining, without defining. Another section should tell us that the lekachtim should be in this mode, in this form and fashion. Says the Ramban, and we derive from this a general lesson for Kol HaTorah Kula. Because it is recorded that way in the Chumash and Dafke this way, from here we can learn a lesson for Kol HaTorah Kula. And this is actually a commentary, a pshat of the Ramban and the Mechilta. There is a Mechilta in Parshas Boy, that's the halachic medrash, and the Mechilta makes a statement, and the Ramban seems to explain the Mechilta. And the Mechilta says that because it says, teaches us wherever it says V'lokchu in the Torah, it's telling us that it has to be in a mode of an aguda, right? Because it says here, Lekachtem agudas eizoiv, utvaltem badem asher basof. So, and the first one, it doesn't say Agudas Eizoiv, says the Ramban, that teaches us, says the Mechilta, that teaches us, that wherever it says in the Torah, throughout the Torah, where it says V'lokchu, Bistam. So we wouldn't know what the definition of V'lokchu means, in what mode, in what fashion. So he says, this parsha teaches us the mode and fashion of V'lokchu. Because if you look further, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Moshe Rabbeinu says it should be Lekachtem Agudas Eizoiv. So we now know that in Kol HaTorah Kula, wherever it says V'lokchu Stam, it has to be Be'igud, Be'agud. exactly what that means. So there are many different ways of explaining. When it's Siv Mivalozhin in Parshas Chukot explains it one way. The Malbim in the Mechilta seems to explain it another way. Possibly it's dependent on the Gemara and Masechta Sukkot Daf Yud Aleph, which we're coming to in a moment. Okay, well, again, this is another pshat of the Rambam. So you see, Al Kapan, the Rambam takes it much more serious. Al Kapan treats it in his mode and basically based on his methodology, because, whatever the Ramban is, whoever learns Ramban in Shas knows that the tifkat of the Ramban, so he has a total different approach in analyzing in Yonim, in Shas, Al Derech Zeh, in Chumash, Mechulu, like you see in all the Rambans. Okay, so it's not as pshatova, it's more, so to speak, in depth and more analytical than the Pashtonim. We're moving on. That was the take of the Ramban. There is a drush of the Maral Miprog in my edition of the Haggadah Shel Pesach, and the standard set of Maral Miprog, of his Svarim, of the Sifrei Maral. So in it, there's a Haggadah Shel Pesach, and I believe the Matpisim, the publishers years ago, right, published also and incorporated in this Haggadah Shel Pesach, and he describes it as a drush hamefursam. It seems to be a very popular drush of the Maral Miprog, and there's a date. When did he darshan it? That's the keppel, the heading. Caption of the drush, the Maral Miprog darshan this drush on Shabbos HaGodol, in Shabbos HaGodol, in Prague, when? In Shnas. Shin Mem Tes. We're now Tov Shin Pei. I believe that works out like 431 years ago. Is that correct? Sounds right? All good. Whatever. But so this drush mefursam. So the Maral Miprog, like his style of the Maral in general, he has more of a philosophical take on this, and he raises the point, and he raises many other issues in the different expressions of the Chumash. What we find added seemingly by Moshe Rabbeinu in the Chumash, in the section where Moshe passes on to Am Yisrael. There are many additional Lashonos which are not found in the words of Hashem to Moshe Rabbeinu. And he seems to take the premise as follows. And here we have an interesting thing. You see, if you think a moment, according to the Ramban, according to the Ramban, you need one place it should say, Olakachtem Aguda says it, and one place it should say, Olakachtem Stam. But what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu choose? The Olakachtem Aguda Eizov by Moshe. The Olakachtem Stam by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. With that Ramban, it could have been the opposite. As long as one is Bistam and one has been Furish, and one teaches on the other. One reflects on the other. But the Maral Miprog explains the whole style, the way he explains it, that no, the Torah B'diuk shows with precision that the Velokchu min Adam, and without the details, a dafka written, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu, and with the details, which Moshe Rabbeinu details, is dafka where Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to Am Yisrael, which that he sees in that respect very much eye to eye with the Rogatchover Gaon, as we'll go on to discuss that the Rogatchover Gaon also analyzes this pshat, according to his take, that it's dafka by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not mentioned, the dafka by Moshe Rabbeinu, it's mentioned. Let's move on quickly. So, maybe because time doesn't allow, I'm not, the Nekudas Advarim is, I got to move, right? Because I have to finish by 9:30. Okay, I'll just say a word. The Ramban, the Maral Miprog says, and also been based on the droshes of the Teres Moshe from the Al-Shech HaKadosh. So the Al-Shech also seems to take that approach. And also Al Derech Zeh and other Sforim, like in the Sefer Torah from the Tzemach Tzedek Mulubavitch, in his set Torah, and other Svarim also approach it, each one in their signa, and each one in their style, and each one in their but the gist seems to be the same. Nekudas Advarim, Maral says that Yidden in general are shval bein ha'umos, right? In other words, they are a minority, and also they are, so to speak, lowly within the nations. They're also mistreated within the nations, especially. And they also see themselves lowly in the nations when they find themselves within the nations, especially when Yidden or Angolas are in exile. There's a lot of anti-Semitism. What do we need the Maral to tell us that, right? We know very well that Yidden are like in a neufon of Shval Ben Anoshim. But he says the fact is it's from the Yidden's perspective. It's from our perspective, the way Yidden see themselves, right? That they see themselves in such a way in Golos that because they're never suffering in Golos, they see themselves Shval Ben Anoshim. Especially when Yidden were in the Mitzrayim. I'm embellishing a little the Maral. And therefore, when Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to Klal Yisrael, He's basically telling them that now is the time where HaKadosh Baruch was about to take you out of Eretz Mitzrayim, from the bondage, and there will be the Exodus, and you will become the chosen people, and you'll become Hashem's people, etc., etc. So basically, the Geula, this is the Haschalta de Geula, right? This is the Geula. In other words, and like the Mefarshim explained, that already the Yetzias Mitzrayim is the Haschala, the beginning of the Haschala's Gerus, etc., of the conversion of Am Yisrael. That's the Dam Mila and the Dam Pesach. In other words, Yidden, this is already the transformation of the Am, of the people, as a Torah nation, even though they're just individual people. There's no Am Yisrael yet, right? But as a Torah nation, and Yidden, the HaKadosh Baruch takes them out of Eretz Mitzrayim in order they should be Tavdun es Elokim ala Hor Hazeh, like we learned in the former parshas. It starts kicking in, and this is the preparation for them to start transforming themselves. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, you should take an Agudas Eizov. And our HaKadosh Baruch Hu surely said it to Moshe, but that's not explicit in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words, like we'll soon explain why. He says, take an Agudas Eizov, and what is an Agudas Eizov? If you recall, the Eizov is the hyssop, and that is the herb which is the smallest and lowest and smallest of all the herbs. Like it says, Eizov Bikir. Right? In other words, so like we find it by the Mitzvah, we find it in Parshas Chukas by the Parah Aduma, that we have to take the Agudas Eizov, the Eizov, together with the cedar wood, right? That's the great and also the very low and the lowly, etc. So the Agudas Eizov is a reflection of those who are very low, who are truly inherently low. In other words, Am Yisrael and the Golos, they were Mushke b'mem K'tesh Arituma. And he says to them, Utvaltem badom asher basof. He says a gewaldige thing. What is this basof? Rashi says it's a basin, right? But some want to say, the Medrash says, the Mechilta says, that basof, in addition to the blood which was placed on the mashkev, on the lintel, and on the doorposts, it was also placed, the blood was also placed on the saf, on the threshold. The threshold was also a place where the blood was placed. And it's interesting, the Maral says, you have this, an expression, iskufa hanidresses. You have a threshold people just trample on, right? So Am Yisrael are like iskufa hanidresses, never to trampled on. But then you have sometimes an iskufa, a threshold, which forms a Pesach, a tzuras a Pesach, an entrance to an entry, an entrance to a home, right? And the home, the entrance to the home makes the home. So B'meila, therefore, he says, what makes an entrance to a home? You have to have a mashkef, a lintel, you have to have doorposts, you have to have a threshold. So when the threshold is part and parcel of the doorpost and the mashkef, then the iskufa is a healthy iskufa. Then there's a positivity, there's a positive thing in it. It establishes an entrance to a home. And he says as follows, he says, the Medrash says that the mashkef resembles Avraham Avinu, and the two doorposts, the right and the left, reflects Yaakov, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, etc. And he says basically, and that's what we're going on to say, Moshe Rabbeinu tells the Am Yisrael, you talk very lowly, like, and this is reflected in the Agudas Eizov, but you should do the Tvaltem Badom Asher Basof, you should dip it into the blood, which is Basof, the threshold of this entrance to this home. Meaning the threshold is not in iskufa hanidresses, which is some people trample on. It's establishing a home, and that's what we call the mashkef is Avraham Avinu, just like Avraham Avinu was Avham Mon Goyim, says the Maral. He brought in all the Jewish people, all the rest of the nations into the fold of believing and trusting in Hashem. So therefore, he's Avham Mon Goyim. So therefore, he's the lintel. He establishes this entrance into the home to bring in all the Klal Yisrael, etc., etc. So, and then it says, V'higatem el hamashkef. That's where he says, V'higatem el hamashkef el Shem. He says a gewaldige thing, right? It says in the former parsha, it doesn't say V'higatem, so we understand. Okay, in the former parsha, it says V'nosnu al shtei hamezuzos, right? Here it says V'higatem. And before it says first shtei hamezuzos and then the mashkef, right? But here it says mashkef first and then shtei hamezuzos. Why? Says the Maral, and Meforshim, like I say, the Rishonim and Meforshim and the Mechilta already deals with many of these detailed things. Says the Maral, V'higatem means you should reach up. When do we have to tell someone to reach up? When he's leaping, when he's jumping. If V'nosnu means you can tap in, you can touch it, you can reach it. But when you're low, so we're telling you, that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is telling the Am Yisrael, you are now leaping, you're taking a leap. V'higatem el hamashkef. Now with all this avodah, you're going to be drawn out and pulled out from the lowliness, right? From the shval anoshim, etc., to the highest. You'll connect. That's what this whole avoid is all about, to transform the people in Egypt, that they should connect to their ancestry. Because only when you connect to your ancestry can you be on a high mode. You're lowly because you're alone and you're segregated. You're not connected to your ancestry, to Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yankiv. And because when you connect to Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yankiv, you're connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's where we say, V'Gatem. You're going to reach up. You're going to jump up. You're going to leap up. It doesn't say V'Nosnu your place because you can't reach it. That's why he says you're going to reach and leap to the Mashkoif. To the Mashkoif. Mashkoif is Avram Avinu. We're not taking slow steps, going slowly up, from downwards, upwards. We first go up the doorposts, and then we go to the mashkav, the lintel. We go directly to the lintel. And that's what we say, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov, because with that we connect to our ancestors and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'll call upon him. He says, Mashengen, that's all in the parasha of Moshe Rabbeinu when he speaks to Am Yisrael. But when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving it over to Moshe Rabbeinu, the people in Egypt, being that the people in Egypt are the descendants of Avram, Yitzchak, V'Yankiv. So from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they are choshuv. Am Yisrael is choshuv even in Golos. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with Yidden in Golos. Because the people, the nation, even before there was a nation, of a Torah nation, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Anoichi imam, Anoichi b'dinim imam, Anoichi v'tzara, therefore Shchinta b'Galusa. So therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the people who are in Golus in Mitzrayim as Anoshim Chshuvim. They're Choshuv. Therefore, they can act normal. You don't need to have a reflection of a hyssop. You don't have to make any leaps to the mashkoif. You can go Malmata Lamaila from Hashem's perspective. Everybody's wonderful. That's why it's normal in the parasha of Moshe HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe. Mashenkin in the parasha. This is the gist of what the Marami Prog says. Phenomenal stuff. Take a look at this Drush Nifla. It's something special. By the way, it happens to be like 20 pages. 20 pages. I wondered what the crowd did while the Marami Prog darshan this drasha. If they were on Zoom, they can fall asleep and even snore aloud. And because they're on mute, so no one's going to hear them snoring. You get it? So I'll call upon him. If the Marami Prog darshan this drushan Nifla in one shot, 20 pages with 2 columns, it's not to be believed. That's why it's known to be a drush Nifla, something to see. Al der the Alchich says it, but Kitzer, in Benekuda, we're moving on to the Rogatchover Gaon. It's very, very late. The Rogatchover Gaon. Of course, like we know, the Rogatchover Gaon, again, follow. Did he see these before? Or he didn't see it, whatever, but it's quite obvious. Like I say, anyone who takes out the Chumash, these are plain points, but the Rogatchover sees it from the halachic perspective. He sees it he has this aerial view of Kol HaTorah Kula. The Mele, when he sees these Lashonas, he explains it as follows with the halachic spectacles. And he says as follows. He says, and the Rogatchover will explain why. Again, we're focusing on these words, on this agudas eizoi utvaltem badom asher basof, which is not mentioned in the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Rogatchover will explain for us why it's not mentioned twice, why it's not repeated. In other words, that's number one. Number two, why it's not, and even when it's not repeated, there's a room to argue that it should say only once. But it could have said once in the words of Hashem. Nevertheless, the Torah chooses to write it the one time, Dafka in the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he explains it halachically. Was ligdo, and only the Rogatchover. Hert was sagt, tayere Sachen. And just by the way, this Rogatchover is ala Torah, and this is from the margins of his Chumash, and it's not, it's readable. It's not cryptic. So even I'm saying this for those who have a Rogatchover at home, a Tzofenes Paneach, allowed themselves to have a Tzofenes Paneach, have obtained, and it's in Pesach Tikva, that's where he is, or in Chavot, wherever he is, right, bought a Tzofenes Paneach and is getting up to get a shelf, he's looking for it. And he claims that not always is he able to work it out, but now you'll see what the Rogatchover says, and it's mamish, it's not cryptic whatsoever, it's mamish, siklor and daitlach. So the Rogatchover asks, it says in the word in the Pasuk and Pasuk Zayin. Sorry, it says in Pasuk Yud Bei Zayin, right? That's the first parsha of Hashem speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu. It says there in the words of the Rogatchover, in the first parsha, it doesn't say you should take this bundle and you should dip it into the saf. Answers the Rogatchover, you know why? Take out of Yerushalmi. No, Kiyodua, right? We know very well, right? Was hat gesagt einmal, the chief rabbi from Mexico, Olav Sholem, Peter geheißen, ich habe vergessen, Rav Metzger, who I know, he's schwer, what was his name? I forgot already, but it was a big London. And he says, nice. Pardon?
Esberg.
Yeah, right, Shkoyach. Hirsch? No, Hirschsprung is from Montreal. Hirschberg, that's correct. Yes, correct. Thank you. Yeah, Shkoyach. I told you that I still remember him sitting. There was a photo in the days of the Shah. He's sitting right next to the Shah of Iran without shoes on, barefoot. He was a gewaldige picture. So he used to come to the Rebbe's Farbrengens, whatever. The Rebbe was very close to him. An Afghan, he was a big London. So he says, nice. He didn't speak like a Hungarian. I mean, like a Polish. He spoke like a Litvak. He says, nice is doing Yerushalmi, Nishten Bavli. He didn't say Nishten Bavli. Nice is doing Yerushalmi. And we know very well reconciliations, and in Yonim, the Rogatchover is very big. In Samech, Ramir Simcha too. Yerushalmi is in Toseftes. Here we go. He says, look in the Yerushalmi Perik Aleph de Yum. In Yerushalmi Perik Aleph de Yum, Perik Aleph Halacha Aleph, I'm going to explain this Rogatchover, because if you look at it and you think about it, it doesn't seem to be too chiddushdik. But the more you think about it, and if you analyze the Inyanim, what the Meforshim say, and that Yerushalmi will appreciate the chiddush. It's getting very, very late. Okay, I'm being aware of it, and I may have to cut it short. We can't allow ourselves to cut it short, right? We have to finish at 9:30.
There is no comment. Obviously, you can continue a bit longer.
You know what? Let's put it this way. If not God forbid, if there's some time needed, so those who feel like they can't go on, I think you allowed me an extra 15 minutes, Menshi, right? Okay, let's move. Sorry, Genug. It's like Dr. Kingsley would say, let's just move on and let's not waste our time. Okay, we're moving on. So in Yerushalmi Perek Aleph de Yuma Halacha Aleph, the Gemara says as follows. The Gemara says, the Lashon of the Yerushalmi is, it says Lekicha. It's quoted here in the notes, in the glosses, in the references, in Safras Paneach. It says Lekicha. It says in the Talmud Yerushalmi. It says Lekicha b'Mitzrayim. It says Ulekachtem lochem agudas eizov. And it says Lekicha by Lulav, right? By Lulav. Ulekacht, don't forget, in a couple of weeks is Pesach, nish Sukkos. Ulekachtem lochem by Yom Rishon. Says the Talmud Yerushalmi, Ma lekicha homer b'Mitzrayim agudo, just like the lekicha by Mitzrayim. It says v'lekachtem agudas eizov, af lekicha homer b'lulav aguda. Al derech said the lekicha by lulav has to be beigud. Bepashtus, this would follow the way the Korb Ma'eda learns. He is known as the Mefarish. If you learn Primigodim in Yeredeya, and even in other places, in Arachayim, when he talks about, he brings a Talmud Yerushalmi and he wants to refer to the Korb Moeda, he calls him the Mefarish. Okay, it's because he was before the Pnei Moshe. I'll call upon him. So in the Mefarish, the Korb Moeda learns Bepashtus, as he says in this Pirush Korb Moeda, not so much obvious in the Korb Moeda, but also in the Shiori Korban, in his commentary on the Talmud Yerushalmi in Yuma. It follows with the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda in Masechtas Sukkah, which, by the way, I therefore wanted to say, but possibly when the Ramban says what he says, he may be referring to this limud of Sukkah. That's what I mentioned earlier, if you recall. Let's move on. So Rabbi Yehuda in Masechtas Sukkah, there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim, if lulav tzorich eged or lulav ain't tzorich eged. Okay? Rabbi Yehuda says lulav tzorich eged. You have to bind the minim together. And if you don't bind the minim together, you aren't mekayim mitzvahs lulav. The Chachamim argue, and they say, Lulav ain't tzorech eged. You don't have to bind the minim set together, and even if they're not bound together, you mekayim the mitzvah. The Gemara nevertheless brings proof, and the Gemara concludes what we do, we bind it, but it's only mitzad the hidur mitzvah, mitzad zekeli v'anveyu. That's the maskonas HaGemara in Masechtas Sukkah daf Yudalef. I'll call upon him. So, but we see clearly, Rabbi Yehuda Shita is Lulav tzorech eged. Where does he know is Lulav tzorech eged? So the Korban Meida explains, basically that's what it says in Bavli also. Okay, but without going into the details, take out a Bavli, you'll see what's going on in the Bavli. So it says here, because you'll soon see the Ikar, what we have from the Yerushalmi. So the Yerushalmi goes on to say, he learns out the Lekicha of Lulav from the Lekicha of Lekachta Agudu Zezev. The Yerushalmi concludes and says as follows, Lulav ma'akev Mitzrayim eina ma'akeves. That's the key issue here. Lulav is ma'akev. That means it's essential. And if you don't have the igud, it's a hindrance to the kiyum mitzvah. That's why the Shiur Carbon learns, but pashtus, it goes l'das Rabbi Yehuda, lulav tzarech eget. Aber Mitzrayim einam me'akeves. Mitzrayim is not ma'akev, meaning if you don't have the agudas ezov by the Mitzrayim, when you tevel it bedam, the Pesach Mitzrayim, it's not ma'akev, it's not essential. You've done and fulfilled the tzivui of Moshe Rabbeinu to the Klal Yisrael. And there the Gemara says a novel thing. The Gemara therefore disputes, we have a Chiddush Godel, das, according to this Yerushalmi, that we can derive something which is ma'akev from something which is not ma'akev, right? It ends up being the tofel is chomor min ha'ikar. The ikar limud is agudas ezov. It's teaching us and reflecting onto what? On the lulav. The lulav, it's ma'akev, and by Mitzrayim, it's not ma'akev. So the Gemara uses that in Talmud Yerushalmi to disprove Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, whatever it's discussing there. Now, the Shiur Carbon adds a gewaltige thing, but this is already Pshat and Bavli. The Bavli Toisvis, when the Gemara says in Mesichta Sukkah Daf Yud Aleph that Rabbi Yehuda learns out lekicha, but the Chachamim don't have the Gzeira Shova lekicha. That's what the Gemara says in Bavli Sukkah. Says Toisvis, what's going on here? Stomach the Gemara in Masechta Kedushin. I'm talking to Eden who learned Daf Yomi, so you know all the Gemaras, right? We know Kicha Mizdei Ephraim, right? So we have a Gzeira Shava of Kicha, right? So there we do darshan the Gzeira Shava Kicha. And here the Chachamim say we don't darshan lekicha. Tosfos doesn't explain. Tosfos just says, look. So some people want to, some Mefarshim Achronim want to say Tosfos means Kicha we learn, but lekicha we don't learn. But listen what the Shiur Carbon says. Shiur Carbon says, once I see it says in Talmud Yerushalmi that the lekicha of lulav is ma'akev, and the lekicha of Mitzrayim is not ma'akev, it's a chiddush gadol. The tofel is chomor min ha'ikar. If you're learning out from Mitzrayim, it can be more stringent than Mitzrayim. So the Talmud Yerushalmi, like it says, it's novel. That's exactly the reason why the Chachamim don't learn this lekicha. Kicha is they Ephraim, they'll learn. But lekicha, they won't learn. Because you can't learn a davar ha'ma'akev from a davar she'eino ma'akev. So even though Tosfos doesn't explain himself, says in the Shiur Carbon, that's his pshat in the Tosfos. Okay. Now, let me just bring to your attention what it says in Shailas Etshuvis, Amudei Or, from a Yid, Avada Yid, a Gadol B'Yisrael, Rabbi Yechiel Heller. He was a Rav in Suvalk. Okay, so if Dr. Balbin is listening to the Shir, Suvalk, and also Mr. Moss was from the city from Suvalk, Olav Hashalom. I'll call upon in Suvalk. So the Rav in Suvalk is a Gvaldik Achazer Achoshev Sharas Etshuvis, and he explains what's going on here. Listen to what he says. The Gemara says, right, the Talmud Yerushalmi says, Mitzrayim eina ma'akev. How do you know that the Agudas Ezev by Mitzrayim is not ma'akev? So the Shiur, the Korb Ma'eda says, listen to his words, Sharlei Nemar Shamikuf, steht nicht, it's ma'akev, steht nicht. Besteht nicht, that Agudas Ezev is essential, so it's not ma'akev. That's what the Korb Ma'eda says. Nevertheless, by Lulav, it is ma'akev. What's going on there? So in Shailas Etshuvis Amud Yer, similar Metches, he says a very interesting thing. He says, we know of a general rule of Shona Olav HaKosuv La'akev. In other words, there is a rule in Shas, for those who learn Shas, and Yidden, ich red doch mit Shas Yidden. Ich mamish nis battle, weil ich red mit Shas Yidden. So b'meila, therefore, throughout Shas or Rishonim, you'll meet up with this klal. It's a Tosfos in Mesichta Menachos Daf Lamed Ches Amud Aleph, where Tosfos says that this rule is said only by Kochim and not by other dinim. Shona Olav HaKosuv La'akev, and that is, most Rishonim accept, this is also found in the Kloli Hashas, in Yad Malachi, and Ois Tov Reish Yud Ches, and many, there's a whole lengthy discussion in the Sefer Lekach Toifer of Yosef Engel, in his Klal Hey, I think it is, where he discusses it by Arucha, if it's Behechrich, if it's not found anywhere else, or it is found anywhere else. 10 pages, a lengthy discussion throughout Kol HaTorah Kula, where he discusses the singing. It's called, okay, what does it mean? Shana Olav HaKosuv La'akev. By Kochim, there's a rule that the first time HaKadosh Baruch Hu says a halacha in relation to karbonis or sacrificial meat, So it's only lechatchila. It's only for the initial thing. But if you don't follow it, bidi avad, bidi eved, right after the fact, if you don't follow that statement or that halacha, you're yoitza, you're mekayim it, it's okay, it's kosher. Only if shana lavakosav liyakev, if the Torah repeated itself, right? So then the halacha would be that by kochim, it is essential. By all other dinim of the Torah, we don't find in dinim of the Torah a difference of lechatchila and bidi eved. That's the rule here. This is a very interesting rule. That's what the Rabbi Engel discusses, if that's a fact or not. That means when the Torah tells you a din or a halacha for a positive or a negative, and it has to be in a certain mode and fashion, it has to be performed, there's no such thing as saying, the Torah only make lechatchila. But b'di'evid, it's kosher. That's only good by a takana de rabbonon. The chachamim means the two things. He can say it's only in the initial stages. But after the fact, maybe they'll ingin. But in a din Torah, you can't say a chilik of lechatchila b'di'evid. Where do we say a difference of lechatchila b'di'evid? Dafka by kochim, which l'maisa b'poil, this is a peladike klal. The Lubavitcher Rebbe's chusay yogan aleinu in Lekutei Sichos, volume 4. For those who have a Lekutei Sichos, can look it up. So if you have it on your shelf, you can take it out of your shelf. If you have it in your back room or under your desk because you don't want to tell people you have it, because all your information or kol Torah, which you know, is taken from Lekutei Sichos, ki yodua leyodim. So b'meila therefore, so you'll do it afterwards. You don't have to show it because or mute. We shouldn't see you in the video that you're taking it out. But in Lekutei Sichos, volume 4, in the Isofis to Yutas Kislev, is page 1250 something or other, is there. He says it's mamish tomua. By kochim, it should be the opposite. Kochim is kodesh, and there are more stringencies. So there, I would say that there it's lechatchila and b'di'evid. There's no difference. By all of the mitzvahs, there's room to be flexible. And dafka the klal is Moshe Kapoyer, dafka by kochim. We say that the first, initially, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it, it doesn't apply. It's b'di'evid kosher. And you need shana olav hakosav leyakev. For it to be essential, has to be repeated. Okay, that's a thing which is discussed, like I say, there. If you want, look there. We got to move on. I'll call upon him. So now, says this Rabbi Yechiel Heller, in Amudei Ur, he says, I can appreciate now Shittas Rabbi Yehuda. He learns out Dover HaMa'akev from a Dover She'ena Ma'akev. He says as follows. He says, because it's not, we don't find a repeat by Kochim, by the Korban Pesach, by the Aguda. Balakachtam Aguda says, we don't find it's repeated. Well, we don't find it's repeated, so therefore it's not Ma'akev. Aber by Lulev, Lulav Torah doesn't have to repeat it. Torah even just he says it for the first time. It's ma'akev. It is essential. So therefore, it's not a problem. It's not a fault. It's not a problem of learning something davar ma'akev from davar she'ena ma'akev, because it's if you learn also in Das, it's doin mino umino uke ba'asra. I'm not going to go into the details. In other words, we treat each one with its own guidelines. And therefore, because Kochim has its rules, so that's the way Rabbi Yechiel Heller explains this Gemara. Let me let you know that in the Sefer Be'er Avram, from Rabbi Avram, Maskela Eson, one of the Gedolei Lita, 150 years ago, in the Sefer Be'er Avram, a most fascinating chibur on Shas, on Moyed, he takes issue with this Korban Ma'eda, and he wants to learn the whole Yerushalmi different. Anyway, we're moving on. Listen to what the Rogatchover says. The Rogatchover says, Vibal the Talmud Yerushalmi says, it's not ma'akev, therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't repeat it in the Chumash. You hear what's going on? Rabbi Yechiel Heller didn't say that. Rabbi Yechiel Heller only said, you don't find it's repeated. But the Rogatchover goes a step further. And the Rogatchover going says, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants that the halacha should be by the Korban Pesach, that v'lakachta HaGudas Ezev shouldn't be essential, therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to omit from the Chumash in the statement from him, from Hashem to Moshe, v'lakachta magudas ezev, and write stam v'lakachta in order, because if it would have been written there, it would have been written repeated. It would have been written twice. If it would have been written twice, it would have been essential by the Korban Pesach. And because the halacha is that it's not essential, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can't repeat it, and therefore doesn't repeat it. And that's why it's only written once and it's not written twice. Because there's a special rule by Kochim, which is sacrificial meat, which is Korban Pesach, as Shonda, and that's what says, I'll read the words of the Rogatchover, Mishum de Kochim tzorich Shonda la'akev, or Shinda la'akev, lekach loy Shonda bohem. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't repeat it. Okay. Now he says a gewaltige thing. Now we're toch the Shaila, offen the Shaila. If that's the case, why don't we have that statement written the first time. It should have said HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We need it written once. So why is it after written by Moshe Rabbeinu, not by Hashem? The first time it should have been written. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it to Moshe. And the second time it should have written. Why is it after written this way? Here comes the Rogatchover, a gewaltige Sache. Listen to this. There's a Mishnah in Pesach in Daf Tzadik Vav. And it's also a Tosefta and Perik Ches, which says as follows, that halacha, this halacha, of lekachtem agudas eizov, utvaltem badom asher basof, v'higatem al hamashke bel sheh mezuzos, was only by Pesach Mitzrayim. In other words, and it's also recorded in the Rambam and Sefer Korban Pesach. In other words, there are many differences, right? There's a Pesach Mitzrayim, there's a Pesach Midbar. They made one Korban Pesach in the desert, one Korban Pesach in Mitzrayim, and there are many Korban Pesachs thereafter for generations, in succeeding generations, right? So the Mishnah details a numbered sum, 2, 3, or 4 details, which applied by the Pesach Mitzrayim. It doesn't apply by Pesach Doiros, by the Pesach for the succeeding generations. And the Rambam also Rambam records them also in Hilchos Korban Pesach and the last halacha of Hilchos Korban Pesach in Sefer Perikut Aleph. Tosefta, it's very many, a lot of details, which were only by the Pesach Mitzrayim and not by the Pesach Doros. But I'll call upon him, well, he's very late. So I'll call upon him, it's very clear that this halacha, it's very clear that it applied only by Pesach Mitzrayim. Number one, of course, every Korban Pesach, you have to throw the blood, you have to pour the blood, etc., etc. But this, that it has to be done with the hyssop and on the doorpost and on the lintel, that only applied in Mitzrayim. Says the Rogatchover, here comes the well-known gewaltige Rogatchover. That's why this statement can be written in the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we have to know, here we go. We know Torah is nitzchis, right? Torah is eternal. But nevertheless, says the Rogatchover, true Torah is eternal. But now within Torah Shebiksav Gufa, which is eternal, right? There is words of Moshe Rabbeinu and there are words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe Rabbeinu is talking the Novi of Hashem, and the Gemara says that he sees Pel, Dabar Boy, Bas Baklaria, Meira says the Gemara, etc. All the Gevaldi Gemara said Isha Alikim Moshe Rabbeinu. But after all, Moshe Rabbeinu is a human being. And therefore, he is mugbal bizmanu mokoim. And because he's mugbal bizmanu mokoim, so therefore, everything he says, even though it's written in the Torah, we can make a distinction between Shah and Doros. Shah and Doros. So therefore, when we have Mashiach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, says the Rogatchover, is lo shayich zman. If you recall what we discussed, Legabe the Mon, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says you should place the Mon dafka in the Kodesh HaKadoshim by the Oren. Because by the Oren there was the Hashras HaShechina. And the Gemara says, Makam HaOren and Menamida says the Gemara in Yom Daf Chafalef. And B'meila, the holding in Olam Hazeh is Manu Mokim. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is L'maylam is Manu L'manu Menamokim. B'meila, therefore, it's not shaykh to, when we speak in the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to segregate, to make a distinction between Shah and Doros, now and for generations. Because this halacha, is limited only to the Pesach Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not written in the Torah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it. Because then you're taking the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who's l'maylam and azman, and you're saying it's only for Pesach Mitzrayim, not for Pesach Doros. That's in it shaykh. So if we have an option to put it into the words of Moshe, which is shaykh to say it's only for now and not for ongoing generations, we choose to place it in the words of Moshe, and we don't choose to place it in the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Listen, with that we have to explain all other details. We're not going to go there now. We're moving on. Rogatchover going further. Now the Rogatchover going asks another shaila, and we're going to move on. It's very, very late. The Rogatchover is now focusing on another lashon. It says in the pasuk, let's look back to the first parasha. It says in Parasha Yud Beis, Pasuk Zayin, you should take from the blood. By the way, I want to just say the ongoing discussion is a lot of the references are found in a lot of the references and also analysis. And the Rebbe expound is in Lekutus Sichos from the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Chusi Yogan Aleinu Lekutus Sichos volume 26 parashas boy the last Sicha. The Rebbe said it in 1981. it was edited later. I'll call upon him. There are a lot of Chidushi Torah. He brings this Rogatchover, he expounds on it in his Miyash of many different Yadim. There's a whole lengthy discussion and many details. Give all the Chidushi Torah. So I'm saying a fair amount of the Maramekaimis or in Yadim, which I'm going to present now, I will share with you, is a lot of is taken from there, even though I didn't have to tell you, because according to the case of Mishnah, Hilchos Talmud Torah, that being Halavaya was his Talmud Muvik. But because I endeavor to be the Rebbe's Talmud Muvik, so therefore it's partial that everything I say is his Torah, so therefore L'chaim B'Levracha. We're moving on. Let's go. So the Rogatchover says, why, when it comes to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words, it says, "V'nosnu al shtei hamezuzos," you should place the blood al shtei hamezuzos. And when it comes to the in Parshas Bo, when Moshe Rabbeinu speaks to the Am Yisrael, he says, you should, it says, "V'higatem al hamashke vel shtei hamezuzos." Why the Lashon v'higatem? And I already mentioned that the Meforshim, right? The Maral Miprog and many other Meforshim explain it. The Maral Miprog and the Teres Alshich explains it like he explained it. They got them to take the leap. But nosnu would means you can touch, you can come, it's in close contact to you. The Heilige Dinev, in a Sefer Igrit de Kala, if you have an Igrit de Kala at home, in Sof Parshas Bo, he also brings a medrash, and he also asks the Shaila, what does it say? Vihigatem. It should have said, you should sprinkle, or you should throw. It should say Loshen Hazor, right? Or Loshen Zrika. What kind of Loshen is Vihigatem? In other words, some of the Mefarshim ask, why is he deviate from the Loshen of Hashem? It should have said V'nosnu, like the Shaila is brought in the name of the Sfasemis. The Sfasemis asks the Shaila, this Sfasemis is not found. It's in the Nish Gedrik, the Sfasemis. It's in the Sefer Lekuti Yehuda, in the name of the Sfasemis. Lekuti Yehuda is from the Eniklach of the Sfasemis, etc., from the Gera Eniklach. So you'll find it in Lekuti Yehuda and Parshas Boy. He asks, why does it say the Gatim? It should say V'nosnu. Or like the Heilige Dineva says, it should say Meloshen Hazor, Meloshen Zrika. So the Rogatchover asks, why does it say V'gatem? So I said, everybody explains it either Al Derech HaDrush or Al Derech HaMusar or Al Derech HaOifen of the Maral Miprog. The Rogatchover Gaon says as follows. The Rogatchover Gaon says that the reason why we find by Moshe Rabbeinu it says V'higaten, and by HaKadosh Baruch Hu it says Dafke V'nosnu. He says as follows. Here we go. Now this is the real dependent on a strong yesod. Now we have to appreciate, and we can't go through it in detail. I'm very sorry, but there is a big shackle of Itaria when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that they should place the blood on the lintel and on the doorposts. What kind of geder was that? Is that a geder of Hazor and Zrikas Hadam, like we have on the Mizbeach by all Korbonis? That the din is you have to place or put or pour or throw or sprinkle, however you'll say it, all the different dinim and different oifanim, the blood on the Mizbeach. So here, the Mizbeach was there's no Mizbeach. It's before the Mishkan, there's no Mishkan. Nevertheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that the blood should be placed on the lintel and the doorpost because that had a din Mizbeach. So if they had a din Mizbeach, so then the blood placed on it is not just like we know. It should be a sign or a kapara or all the different things. The Ma'achayi, right? All of that in Yonah, which is found in the Rishonim and the Mefarshim, in the Mefarshei Agoda, but also it's together, it's part of the Avodah of the Korban Pesach. That in addition that it protected them because the Malach will see it, etc., etc. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be over and therefore pass over the Pasachti Aleichem where the blood will be. In addition to that, who's calling me? I can't answer no phones now. Yeah. So in addition to that, there was also a din of Hazor Saddam. Okay. So that's one, we can learn that, or we can learn no, that has nothing to do with Hazor Saddam. Let me just say as follows. It seems like there are two sugyas. There's a Mefurish sugya in Masechet Pesachim, Daf. Mefurish sugya in Masechet Pesachim, Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Aleph, where the Gemara says Mefurish as follows. The Gemara asks, the emurin, right? We know the fat of the korban, even though it's a korban shlomim, the korban pesach, and they have to eat the meat. What about the emurin, the insides, which certain emurin, the fats have to be brought on the mizbeach by all korbanos, even by kochim kalim. So where were they brought? There was no mizbeach. So the Gemara Taka says that, who says they brought? In other words, the Gemara accepts to say that this one the Omar, he believes that there was a murim. In other words, he understands from this whole parasha that it's a korban pesach, it's a korban, sacrificial meat. There's no question about it, and it has all the dinim, etc., etc. The question is, where did they bring the murim? There was no mizbeach. So the Gemara says as follows. Listen what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Dilma, what makes you think they were maktir the emurim? Says the Gemara in Pesachim. Dilma shviski avud. What is shviski avud? So there's a machlokes. What does it mean? Shviski, we once discussed this. There's a Rogatchover. How long? Not whiskey. I said shviski. Okay. Shvisky. Shvisky means, says to Rashi, that it was roasted on the spit. And so there's a machlokes. The Meiri says it was roasted on the spit, and they didn't eat it. And the Rabbi Hananel says, no, they actually roasted it and ate it just like they ate the meat. They ate also the fat. And because they had a din of a bnei noyach, says the Chido in his sefer, Dvorim Achodim, in his drush, the Shabbos HaGodel, in Daf Mem Daled, Amud Daled, take a look, that's referenced by the Rebbe, you'll find that, he says that they were allowed to eat the chaylev because it's before Matan Torah. Okay, all good. That's one way. Oh, and then the Gemara says, another thing, I'll prove to you that there was no Mizbeach. Because, as the Gemara, he says, Gimel Mizbechos Hoyu, there were 3 Mizbechos for the dam. That was it, no more than that. So what does the Gemara say? No more than that. That means there was no place to put the emurim. So we don't know where they were knocked to the emurim. But the Gemara says, Mefurish, there were gimel mizbechos for the dam. That's the Lashon Gemara, gimel mizbechos. And Rashi teaches Mefurish. What does it mean, gimel mizbechos? That's where Rashi, that's the Rashi, the Devarim Achodim, the Chito. It learns that you see clearly from this Rashi, and also the Rabbi Yosef Engel. The Rebbe references Rabbi Yosef Engel and Gilyani Hashas, and Masechet Pesach, Tzadik Vav, and the Chito is very clear from the Rashi. That Rashi is masbid is Gemara Gimel Mizbeachas. Yeah, the Mizbeach was there for the dam. And what was the Mizbeach? The lintel and the doorpost. But there was no Mizbeach for the emurim. Okay, that's the way you learn Bepashas is Gemara. And that's the way everybody would learn. And that's the way definitely the Rogatchover Gaon learns. And the Rebbe definitely substantiates this sheet. And he has, like I say, this lengthy exposition on the gather of the Mizbeach, etc., etc. Look there if you have, or even if you don't have, etc. We're moving on. But I just want to bring to your attention, there's another sugya. And the other sugya is a mefurish. Those yichledach mit shas yidden who just finished Seder Kachim. So in Mesichta Menachos, Daf Pei Beis, Amud Aleph and Amud Beis, the Gemara says mefurish, it talks about the halacha. If davar shebechulin, I can't go into the details now. But Al Kapara, the Gemara says mefurish. Both the emurim and the dam, there was no mizbeach for the emurim and the dam. I'm mefurish Gemara. And if you look into Rabbeinu Gershon, on the spot, referenced by all these achronim and the Rebbe, in Rabbeinu Gershon and in Rashi. It's mefurish in Rashi and Rabbeinu Gershon that there's no mizbeach for the emurim, for the innards, the insides, the fat of the mizbeach, of the korban, and there's also no mizbeach for the blood. So there's no mizbeach, according to the sugya of Masechta Menachos, the Gemara names on that there was no mizbeach whatsoever in Mitzrayim. And interesting, the Gewaldige Chasam Sofer, which the Rebbe references, and a Peladige Chasam Sofer, because Rabbi Ephraim Zalman Margolius, the Bavusta Beis Ephraim, writes, Hasogis has a problem with the Sefer Ponim Yofes, which is the Rebbe of the Chasam Sofer, and he has a kasha in Yeridei Simaresh Lamed Hey on a shtickle Ponim Yofes. You know, and it says in the Chasam Sofer, and what you write about the Sefer Ponim Chadoshes. So I saw in the new print of the Chasam Sofer, it says, it's a mistake. It's not Ponim Chadoshes, it's Ponim Yofes. Well, that's his name, Ponim Yofes. But I'm telling you, the Chasam Sofer meant Ponim Chadoshes. Because the Ponim Yofes, every time, the more you learn Ponim Yofes, you see Ponim Chadoshes. Gewaldige Sachen, the Balaflo. So what did they say? It's a mistake. The Chasam Sofer knew how to call his Rebbe Sefer. Any Rebbe Chleifim. So there's an issue with Korbanos, etc. Take a look. It's a little tshuva, a little section on that. And the Chasam Sofer learns that there was no Mizbeach. And what the Gemara says, he doesn't bring the Chsugi in Masechta Menachos. He says there's no place for the Mizbeach for the emurim. There's no Mizbeach either for the blood. Listen to what he says. He says, when the Gemara says that there was Gimel Mizbeach, so you. Militza. Miloshin Militza. Who? Militza, Herst. Unbelievable. Chasam Sofer soll es sagen. And it's not a Chasam Sofer in Drosh, it's Chasam Sofer. It's not a Chasam Sofer ala Torah. It's Chasam Sofer in the Tshuvis, to be miyashiv upon him chadosh, upon him yofes, etc., etc. So maybe he says it only to be miyashiv his Rebbe, and he says my Rebbe surely knew what he was talking about. So I don't know, but he says it that it's a lashon belitza, and you see from the Rebbe's Lekutei Sichos in the Ha'ara in the Shuli Agilian that the Rebbe is like surprised that the Chasam Sofer says belitza, and he puts it in bold letters, which would mean melitza would mean it's a figure of speech. but really he doesn't mean to say it has a criteria of Mizbeach. Okay, I'll call upon him. The Gilyani Hashas Rabbi Zevengel says these two sugis don't see eye to eye. But the Rogatchover is, we're focusing now on the Gemara in Pesach. With the Gemara in Pesach says Mefurish that in relation to the blood it was definitely Begeder Mizbeach. Says the Rogatchover, it's Begeder Mizbeach and B'meila the dam placed on the lintel and on the doorpost. I'm finishing. We have 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes, right? That's it. Wonderful. So I'm going to just take a little sip of water. Excuse me. Yeah. And says the Rogatchover as follows. There's a difference in the Lashon, V'nosnu, and the Lashon V'higiu. He says as follows. He says, what is the Geder of Hazor in general about sprinkling or pouring blood on the Mizbeach? So the Rogatchover says, over here, the blood has to be in a mode. The Ikar HaMitzvah wasn't the Hazor. The Ikar HaMitzvah was Sheyiye ala mashkef. Now, we know very well, we Baruch Hashem are acquainted with the terminology, the new language, like many say, that the Rogatchover has his own language, different language than all the Achroinim, and therefore a lot of them didn't understand what he's saying. There's Kiyodua, the Lashonis of the Rogatchover, there's Poel, Po'ula, and Nifal, which mainly, in other words, would mean the Maisa Hagavra, the act of the person, what is actively doing the act or the mitzvah, right? Or refraining or doing the Avera, right? So he's actively doing it, the Poel and the Pu'ula. The Poel is the Gavra, the person doing it, and the Maisa HaGavra, that's the Pu'ula, the act of doing it, right? And then you have the Nifal, the result. Now everything generally has the combination of these three factors. There's a Poel and there's a Pu'ula and a Nifal, right? Like when you sprinkle blood, right? So there's an individual, a Gavra, who's taking the blood, he's doing the act of pouring the blood, and then you have the Nifal, the result, and the blood ends up landing on the Mizbeach, right? So it's inevitable. It's going to be all over. The question is, says the Rogatchover, what is the Ikar mitzvah? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu says sprinkle blood, what is the Ikar Torah? What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want? And this he declares, this Bavustach Kiris, he has it throughout Shas, throughout all different dinim of the Torah, Legabe Melech HaShabbos, Legabe Ksiva, Legabe Kol Mini Melachas. What is the intent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What is the Kiyuv mitzvah and when is the Chiyuv? Is the Kiyuv mitzvah or the Chiyuv Dafka in the act, or is the Kiyum or the Chiyuv Dafka in the result? And if you recall, by the way, the Rogatchover makes a clear distinction between the Tefillin Shel Yad and the Tefillin Shel Rosh, which there we can appreciate it. It's like in a tangible way. The mitzvah is La'ashar Kedeshanu Lahoniach Tefillin. He says there the mitzvah is Ukshartem, the act of winding it. But once after you've wrapped the straps and you put the tefillin on your hand, you fulfill the mitzvah and it's ended. But Mashenkin and Tefillin Shel Rosh, the mitzvah is Al Mitzvahs Tefillin, the mitzvah is Sheyehe Munach, the result. Not the act of putting it on your head, but the result that it's remaining on your head. And there's many nafkaminis, so he discusses in Sofras Panech al Rambam Milchas Tefillah. You remember we discussed the same thing in relation to the Beis HaMikdash and the Mishkan. The Beis HaMikdash, the Rogatchover learns the mitzvah is Sheyiya Habayis, the result that we should have a Beis HaMikdash. And there's no mitzvah. The building of the act of building it is merely a gather of what? Of Hecht mitzvah, etc., etc. And therefore he reconciles many halachas. Mashenke by the Mishkan, the mitzvah was Va'asisa, the mitzvah isn't doing it. There'll be an nafkamina if you can use a cotton. Many different nafkaminas. Not go there. So let's talk about Hazor. So the Rogatchover, based on a Gemara in Masechta Zvachim, I'm finishing. Menshi, I see you looking at me. The Gemara says in Masechta Zvachim, Daf Tes Vav, says based on the Gemara. We can't go through the Gemara now. Based on the Gemara in Masechta Zvachim, Daf Tes Vav, the Rogatchover wants to claim, and he has an interesting, a lengthy tshuva to Ezra Altshuler from Lithuania in Shadas Chivas Panech Hachadosh Chelik Beis, discussing this, where he speaks this thing in detail. But here he just accepts and takes it for granted that the mitzvah of Azah of Dam, the sprinkling or the pouring of the blood by every korban except for individual korbanos, the mitzvah is the act. The act. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to sprinkle it. And therefore, when the Kohen just does the act of sprinkling, even before it lands on the Mizbeach, or even before it comes in the atmosphere of the Mizbeach, he has fulfilled the avodah of Zrikas Adam. L'may nafkamina, many nafkaminis. If he has a false machshava, right? Let's say he has a machshavas psul, right? And the din is if you have the false mind, you have something wrong in mind, when you do the main avoidus, it invalidates the korban. What happens if he sprinkles, he shoots, he throws the blood didn't land yet, and he has a machshavas psul. So possibly it won't affect this avodah of zrika, because he did the ikar avodah already, which is the act of zrika. Okay? So that's what the Rogatchover says. Valdera said there'll be another nafkamina. He says the din is, according to the Mandomer, who says if you have apostle korban and you place it on the mizbeach, so there's a Mandomer in the Shas and Mesechtes Vachim, you have to remove it from the mizbeach. Im olu yerdu. But he says, when is that? Only when we're talking about the meat of the korban or the emurim of the korban. See, if the korban is possible, vibald, when the meat and the emurim, the mitzvah is that it should be consumed in the fire. So there, vibald doesn't belong on the mizbeach, and it was put on there invalid with shalei al pi halacha because it was invalid. You have to remove it, get rid of it, get it off the mizbeach. But blood, even if it was blood which was from a korban posel, once after it lands on the mizbeach, it can remain there. You don't have to wipe it off the mizbeach. Why? Because the mitzvah is not in the munach that it remains on the mizbeach. The mitzvah is in the act of throwing. So therefore, the mitzvah is all over with. There's nothing wrong with leaving it on, and that's the way he explains the Gemara. A Tosfos in Masechta Pesachim, Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis. Look there. In Masechta Zvachim, Daf Pei Zayin Amud Beis. So look there. Okay, we're moving on. Says the Rogatchover. Here we go. Says the Rogatchover. That's by all hazos. V'nosnu. We're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nosnu. He says you should place the blood. Place the blood means like all hazos or all zrikas, and that means put the blood on the lintel and on the doorpost. When it came to Pesach Mitzrayim, there's a special halacha. What's the halacha? HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in addition to the mitzvah of Azor, there's another halacha. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it should be munach. That it should also be the result. It should remain there, right? Because that's exactly what's going on in the parsha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that by it remaining there, and we'll see the blood on the doorpost and on the lintel, so then ufosach, he will pass over those homes. So basically, the Zrika Saddam, which was meant to be performed by the Korban Pesach in Mitzrayim, in addition to the mitzvah of Azov, of all Korbanos, there's a new halacha. What's the new halacha? That it has to be not just the lohoniach, but also it should be munach. Not just the Maisa Hagavra, but also that it should land on the Hecht, in the words of the Rebbe, right? You get it. I hope you all got it. But Mela says the Rogatchover. Here we go. Says the Rogatchover. That's why it uses the Lashon Vihigatem. You know what Vihigatem means? And here I'm telling you that according to the Rogatchover, the meaning of Vihigatem means it should reach it. When you say Vihigatem, when you say place it, or you say throw it, or you say pour it, right? It talks about how the person's doing it. But we don't know exactly where it's going to land. When I say it should reach it, it means it has to end up being there. So V'yigata means it should reach it. Which reminds me of Poil. If you look into the Targum, he seems to be metargim it, that V'yigata means to throw it. And that's the way the Trumas Hadeshen brings in his Pirush on Rashi. On the Chumash, he brings the Targum. I don't know if that's according to him, it means the Targum saying that. It doesn't follow with the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover says V'yigata means that it means it should reach it. I'll call upon him. But now we can appreciate, says the Rogatchover Gaon, why Dafka the V'yigatam is written in the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. Because if it would have been written in the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking about the mitzvah of Zrikas Hadam. And the mitzvah of Zrikas Hadam, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, it is ledoiros, there's no limit in his words. So we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you how to make the Zrika. HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't say V'higatan. Because when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, make the Zrikas Hadam, it would refer, because Hashem is l'mayla min azman, it would be addressed not just to the blood of the Pesach, Mitzrayim, it would refer to all Karbonis Pesach. And the fact is, by all Korbanos Pesach, we don't need Vehigatem. We only need the Maisa Hagavra. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says V'nosnu. Oh, but Moshe Rabbeinu, who is a Nivra and he's limited in time and space, therefore by him it says Vehigatem, because there's a new halacha, special halacha, that it has to be what? It should be not just the Maisa Hagavra, but also it should be the result. With this, the Rogatchover concludes. And why does it have to be the result? Because we need it to be Megan on Am Yisrael. Like we said, the blood has to end up being there. Because that was Megan on Am Yisrael. So the Rogatchover brings the Gemara in Masechta Soita. The Gemara says in Masechta Soita, Mitzvah be'idna da'asik ba magino matzla. A mitzvah protects a Yid only when he does it. Torah protects a Yid even as long as he learned Torah once, so even though it protects him even after he learned. But according to certain Tosfos, etc., you have to learn the Gemara there. Mitzvah's Megin or Matzel protects the Jew or person, mainly only when he's oisik, when he's involved in it. When he's involved in it. So we need this mitzvah sazor as an additional mitzvah, not just the mitzvah of doing the act, but we need the mitzvah that also the result here. There's a demand that it also have the result. And if it also has the result, it's going to be Megan on the Am Yisrael, because there's still a kiyum mitzvah, an ongoing kiyum mitzvah. I want to conclude with two things. With this, we can appreciate the Nusach HaBrocha, which according to the Rogatchover, it needs to be thought about. It's not so poshut. But if you take out your Brocha Asher Ga'alonu, the Rebbe Zol's Taka is lesen. And we're saying the Brocha Asher Ga'alonu, which is the Nusach in the Mishnah. Gerade in the Mishnah of the Bavli, we don't have it complete, but this Nusach HaBrocha is found in the Yerushalmi, complete. The Nusach we have in Birchas Asher Ga'alonu, and it's found in the Rambam in Hilchas in his Nusach HaAgoda, and it's taken from the Rif. The Rif has the Nusach HaBrocha complete. And what's the Nusach HaBrocha? Let's read it. Listen. We can say the Nusach is only Liyofi HaMelitza. You know, if some Sefik say, Lashon HaGemara, I can say it in Nusach HaBrocha. It's a Melitza. But I'm telling you, there's more than that. And listen, the interesting the Lashon. I'm sure you all paid attention to it because we're saying it Baruch Hashem for many years. Asher Ga'alonu. And Grad, all the Nuschais are the same. Don't worry about it. Chabad, Ashkenaz, Sfard, Moroccan. The Allah, Klal Yisrael is in Einem. You say, yeah. Asher Ga'alonu, ich gedenke doch, wie mein Tat hat es gesagt mit seinen Nigen, okay, l'chaim v'levrocha, okay. Ich sage es bis heint also. Okay, I'm not going to say it with the Nusach now. Asher Ga'alonu, v'golas aviseinu, listen. V'higiyonu halayla azeh, v'higiyonu. Halayla azeh lechel b'matzah amor, that's the Lashon of the Sheichiyonu. Sheichiyonu, v'higiyonu. What does that mean, Sheichiyonu, v'higiyonu? Sheichiyonu, v'higiyonu means that Hashem enabled us to reach, right? So we say in the bracha, v'higiyonu halayla azeh, Hashem enabled us to reach, right? Listen weiter. Ken Hashem Elokeinu yagienu l'moyadim ul'regalim acherim l'sholem yagienu. Interessante Lashon. What does yagienu mean? He will enable us, right? Again, to where we should reach. Yeah, reach out, reach up, right? Here you go. Yeah, yagienu. So look what we have. So we have the Lashon, who redeemed us and redeemed our ancestors from Egypt and has enabled us to reach this night. I'm reading it in English. And enabled us to reach other festivals. And the biggest pella, listen to the Lashon. V'noichol shomin azvachim min apsochim sheyagia domam al kir mizbachach al rotzen. A pella dika Lashon. No, look at the Meforshim here Agoda if they stellen sich on it. So on the Lashon al kir mizbachach al rotzen is a modern Lashon. So the Rebbe brings talking about the walls of the Mizbeach. So and it says if you learned last week's parsha in Parshas Vayikra, it's mentioned twice, Al Kirmes Bachacha. So the Rebbe quotes those psukim, and then he says, look in the Siddur, Yam Gevenden, he explains it all derech HaKabbalah. So why it says Al Kirmes Bachacha is a separate discussion. But I'm talking about the Lashon Sheyagia Domam, Al Kirmes Bachacha. I believe this Lashon Sheyagia Domam is coming from the Lashon Nusach HaPosuk V'higatom El HaMashkef. That's my take. That's where he says that Lashon. Now, according to the Rogatchover, it doesn't apply to every Korban Pesach. It only applies to Pesach Mitzrayim, correct? Like we just discussed. Okay? I'll call upon him. Nevertheless, it could be because tonight is Leil Pesach, right? I'm saying Abshetel. Man sagt, da so viel Pshetlach in der Agode. Wenn mir sagen, ich jetzt Abshetel, ich kann sich Leuten sagen. So even though we're talking about the emissary, the Zrikas Dam of all Karbonis, which there doesn't have the din of Yagia Damam, the Higatem, nevertheless, Rebel is the Leil Pesach, and that's the Leil Shimurim. So everything which occurred in the first Pesach reoccurs every night. So therefore, there's a me'ain of Yagia Damam al Kibbutz Bachacha. So we're mispalo. Should be, in other words, we're invoking what happened by Mitzrayim. Even Allah halacha, you don't need the Vehigatim. And I want to conclude with just one word, and that is, I want to thank Dr. Yitzchak Balbin, Rabbi Doctor, and also my cousin, Rabbi Yisrael Rosenfeld. They sent me a shtickle, a word of the Rogatchover Gaon, and it's negayah to every one of us. And the story goes as follows. It once occurred that it says once occurred. L'maaseh b'Poel, the Rogatchover Gaon was stuck during the First World War. He had to leave Latvia, Itvinsk, and he had to go to St. Petersburg. He had to be in Petersburg for 10 years. He was there, and he writes in the Chuvas that he's in Golus. He had no Svarim, etc., etc. And that's when I remember. I always convey this. That's when he acquainted himself with Chabad Chassidim, even though he was a Chabad Chassid, a Yid from home, from the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, etc., etc. But he acquainted himself as he became very friendly with Chabad Chassidim, and they recall different incidents. It's all recorded. And he became very close to the Rebbe Rayatz of Lubavitch. Used to come into him, and the Rebbe himself. The Rebbe writes also that he also was a Yotzev in Nichlis by the Rogatchover when he was in Petersburg, when he used to come to visit his father-in-law. Anyway, this is the story. It says once the Rogatchover came to St. Petersburg. Once. He was there, quite a while. Listen to the story. He had to cross the street. The streets in St. Petersburg were like Fifth Avenue, you understand, or like St. Kilda Road. Like real wide streets with 10 lanes. If you ever drove on the highways, right, and there, whatever, you have 5, 6 lanes. How many lanes? And it's gefährlich. There's no way you can cross, right? You have to have a crossover. You have to have a bridge. You have to have a light. Anyway, so the Rogatchover waited a long time until the hustle and bustle of the traffic slowed down, that enabled him to cross the street, and he didn't cross the street b'chlal. He waited and waited and waited and waited. He had people who escorted him, who went along with him. And they said to the Rogatchover Gaon, why don't they try to influence him, to impress upon him that he should try to cross, when there's a highway, 2 lanes, 5 lanes, 4 lanes, you're right, you go to the middle road or whatever, and you try to the crossover, to the, whatever you call it, you try to cross. And if you can't cross, you wait in the middle, right? Then you cross the next section. So they said to him, Rabbi Rogatchover Gaon, let's go in between the cars, right? You know how many times people go in between the cars? You got to be careful on the road, right? So you see that happening even on Carlisle Street. Well, Carlisle Street, all right. Watch out on St. Kilda Road, right? Well, there is a V'chulu, right? The Rogatchovers, so they said to him, why are you so afraid? They asked the Rogatchover, why are you afraid? We're escorting you. We'll go in between the cars. So why are we waiting this long? Listen to what the Rogatchover said. You have to be a Rogatchover for it, but Weissach is you have to be a Rogatchover for it. He answered them as follows. There are 612 mitzvahs in the Torah, and all of the 612 mitzvahs of the Torah, they were given to us, and we're able to do tshuva if we don't fulfill them. You can do tshuva from every single mitzvah. There's no mitzvah you can do tshuva for. There's only one mitzvah that there's no way you can do tshuva for. And that is the mitzvah of v'nishmartem ma'od l'nafshesech. There's no way you can do tshuva for that mitzvah. And the balditz v'nishmartem ma'od l'nafshesechem. Don't look for trouble. Better stay safe than be better safe than sorry, as the expression goes. And the matter, therefore, based on what we've just discussed, that loiseitzu al teitzu, and that's the reason, like it says in this parsha, that he tells them that they should put it vehigatem el hamashkef. Why? Because in this parsha it says va'atem loiseitzu ish mepesach beisei ad boiker. So everyone, it's incumbent upon every one of us not to be mitchakem, not to be frimed at the Rogatchover Gaon. And therefore, we should have an indoors and forget about the minyan. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And listen to the government, and listen to the health department, and listen to the instructions, and remain safe. And soll der Rebischter geben, soll Tage, soll uns hieten, und soll geben, Refuah Shlema, weil die alle, whoever needs a Refuah Shlema. Yashakoyach saying, thank you very much for hosting me. And I appreciate hosting you. And Emir Hashem, if there'll be a Rogatchover Shir the next Sunday, so I believe Menshi will post and inform everybody. And the Iker, I want to just say that there's so much more information on this topic, but we had to cut corners, so there's no choice. So I want to say Yashaker Godel to Godel Amasa Yosem and Oisa. First, he was Mishtatev in the Limud, and in addition, he was also Mezaka all the Yidden to learn Torah. So there's Chuzal der Beistein Menshi Schneier for Nachas V'choltov Sela, und all Klal Yisrael sollen geholfen werden nach HaKosher v'Sameach. Thank you.